Welcome to the Sober Nation FM podcast, where we're putting recovery on the map. I'm your host, Jonathan Sylvester. This show is brought to you by Sobriety Engine. Do you want to take your recovery to the next level? Do you want more support, community, and fellowship? Sobriety Engine is an incredible community of men and women supporting each other in their recovery. You can get a ton of great tips, resources, and guidance to help you succeed in recovery and in life. Visit sobrietyengine.com to join today. Sober Nation FM is also brought to you by Recover Health. If you're ready to get fit and start living a healthier lifestyle, all while supporting your sobriety, then you can learn more about having me as your own personal fitness and nutrition coach at rcvrhealth.com. And whether you're listening to the show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or watching on YouTube, please share this with your friends. Follow, subscribe, and leave a review. Nation, let's hop right into today's episode. Today, I'll be speaking with author Tom Boldt. Thanks for coming on the show, Tom.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, excited to have you. And, on the last episode of the show, I had your mom, Laura, on to talk all about the book that you guys co-authored and wrote together titled Unraveled. And so I wanted to have you on the show to really hear things from your perspective. So I'd like to start out here just hearing about how you found recovery. So what was going on before you got sober? What did life look like? And where does all this really start?
Well, I think for me, it started fairly young. I wrote in the book a little bit about my first experience with medication. I was having trouble falling asleep and before the first day of school, and my mom didn't know what to do, and she gave me, I think it was a Valium or something like that, and that's when I felt amazing, and all my fears went away, and so I thought that a solution would be in a pill form. So it kind of took off from there, but if we fast forward, my life before, right before recovery, I mean, I was teaching tennis and doing kind of office duties at a tennis club a couple days a week. And other than that, I was just kind of lazy or partying, and I just had the job just to kind of show face and kind of put out the message that, yeah, I'm working, my life's together. And it just got so bad. And I was losing friends. I was losing relationships. I was, using drugs and on a daily basis, drinking all the time. And, I had tried a lot of things to try and make myself feel better, but it finally came down to me just being so beaten down and miserable that I was like, I need help. And the only person that I thought I could go to was my mother. So I just said, I need help me out. I'll do anything.
Okay. Got it. Yeah. Well, and I want to come back to that. So I want to ask you, I think most of the time when I hear people's story, it's definitely the case in my own story. And I would say for most of the guests that I've had on the show, there's this, either first moment or this moment that they can really pinpoint where they remember substances really giving them some type of relief, just like right off the bat. And it sounds like that. Or the time that you recall anyway, is this time where your mom gave you Valium or something along those lines. Where did it progress from there? I know that your mom mentioned, I asked her about what she found out about you during the process of writing this book. And I'm going to ask you the same question here in a minute about her. And she said that one of the things that she really didn't know a whole lot about was some of the bullying that was going on in your life that she felt was maybe contributing to some of the drug use and stuff. So you start with, you remember it starting with the Valium that gave you the relief. Where does it kind of go from there, and how does it progress, the drug and alcohol use?
So that went dormant for a couple years after that because I was pretty young.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, so I think where it picked up for me was probably the summer between 8th and 9th grade.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, I found marijuana, and I was using that almost on a daily basis in the summertime. And it just started to progress from there. I started to not like that because I got a little anxious, and my anxiety would skyrocket when I would
Okay.
when I
When
would
you would
get
smoke.
when I would smoke. So
Yeah.
um, I kind of slowly veered into other things. Go to parties and kind of go through medicine cabinets and try new stuff out. And
Sure.
I was just looking for some sort of solution to
Hmm.
fix my mental problem,
Right.
whatever I thought it was.
Right.
Um, and then it just kind of progressed from there. I mean, I just started taking that stuff and um, would feel better. And then I would need more and more and more and stronger stuff. And I went from, you know, Xanax, Valium, um, cocaine, um, painkillers.
Hmm.
Painkillers is that's where I found my niche there. That's when I started. Um, I would find these little pills. They were morphine sulfate, and those are what I needed to have with me at all times.
Mm.
It was like my solution.
Mm.
And so I just kind of just started falling apart.
Yeah, yeah, and it's always interesting to me, and I'm sure you've had this experience along with our listeners and the people watching this. Just the similarities in stories. Because for me, it was kind of that time period between eighth and ninth grade, smoking weed. I didn't get the anxiety and all that from the weed. If anything, and this is kind of what I wanted to ask you. You said you found that these different drugs that you started, trying out basically and just trying anything kind of fixed whatever you felt the problem was. I'm pretty sure, I feel pretty confident that for me, it was just kind of like a maybe, a little lack of confidence, some just social anxiety stuff going on. What was it looking back? Like, what was it for you that you think was being solved by the substances?
I think for me, it was anxiety, depression, um, fears.
Hmm.
Um, I did it to fit in. Um, so it kind of wiped all of that away. The worry, um, I was a worry wart.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
even today, it's like the anxiety is something that I struggle with big time because my anxiety is like, um, it affects me in such a physical way. Um, I stop eating. I kind of tighten up and become a recluse. And
Hmm. Hmm.
um, so it's an ongoing thing that I have to continue to work on, but I know how to work on that and stay sober now
Hmm. Hmm.
and do it in a healthy way and have
Yeah.
a good life.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, where does this have to lead? Like, what is the critical point for you that you finally have to reach out to your mom and ask for help? What ends up happening?
So I had just gone through a breakup. Um, and I went out on Halloween night um, and just let loose. I mean,
Okay.
I got in a couple bar fights, um, lost them all. Um, I just got rocked.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, I had the liquid courage, but I
Hmm.
was, so um, that happened. I was out with some coworkers and they didn't know what was going on with me.
Okay.
And they took me back to their house at the end of the night, and I ended up getting in a fight with one of my coworkers and throwing him over a balcony. And landed on his head, and I thought I had killed him. I was like, he was not moving. I was terrified. Um, 1,000 thoughts going through my head, and I woke up he ended up being just fine, thank God. And I woke up the next morning, and I was done. I felt like I was done. I just had almost given up. I was just like, I don't even know what to do. I'm so tired of living like this, and I'll do anything I can to get better, whatever is recommended.
Yeah. And
So
prior to this moment, or this incident, I should say, were there any thoughts about getting sober? Was there any like research that was being done? Like, I know your mom mentioned what we had in common is she said she had been kind of Googling, rehabs and stuff like that. Was there any of that going on prior to this?
not for me. So I thought I didn't trust anyone. Like, I didn't trust my therapist. Um, I just went there to just make it look like I was trying to work on something.
Right, right.
Uh, but there was never any relief
Mm-hmm.
from that.
Mm-hmm.
And um, I would try to get sober, and I would detox on the couch. My mom would help me detox on the couch outside, and I would last a couple of days, maybe a week.
Okay.
Um, and I would try and do maybe a little bit of this, maybe a little bit of that.
Right.
And so it was a lot of experimentation on my part, and not a lot of actual research that could help me.
Yeah, yeah. But you were trying different things. And so you were detoxing from the morphine or
Yeah, morphine, Xanax.
okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Yeah. Yeah, and that's I mean, detoxing from anything sucks, but what I didn't know until later on is how dangerous detoxing from drugs like that can be. I mean, Xanax, like, man, that's something like you can die detoxing from Xanax. You can have seizures and all this stuff. I think a lot of people maybe kind of I don't want to say dismiss it or play it off, but don't take it as seriously as they should. It's extremely serious. So sounds like at some point you get detox. What is your mom being in recovery like? What is her response during all this? Is she just trying to kind of be there for you without enabling? Like, what's her response?
Yeah, she was trying to be there for me, without enabling. I think she was getting a lot of information from other um, sober people that were helping her out,
Okay.
because she was fairly well. She had a couple years,
Okay. Okay.
and so my dad didn't really know what to do.
Hmm.
He just was kind of there for me, and then they would try the tough love thing, and um, try a whole bunch of things, and it just you know I just wasn't having it.
Yeah.
Now looking back on it now, I just feel so bad for them.
Hmm. Hmm.
It must have been so rough.
Well, and that's part of the reason that I wanted to have you on separately is because I think about this a lot. Like, my parents aren't in recovery. They're both more along the lines of what you were saying about your dad, like not really knowing what to do. But having been sober for a little while now, I've definitely given some deeper thought to like and really tried to empathize, with what my parents were going through and what I put them through. And so that's why I kind of wanted to get, these two different viewpoints there. So I think that's interesting that you mentioned that because that's a lot of what I'm thinking about as well. Do you end up going to treatment or what ends up happening? How do you actually take that final step, if you will, into recovery and into getting sober?
Yeah, I ended up going to treatment. When I asked for help, my mom said, "All right, here's a list of places you can call. Get calling."
Okay.
And so I picked a spot and they didn't have a bed for a couple of days.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to continue using a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, and I didn't necessarily want to.
Yeah.
Um, I even remember just like sipping a beer and like not wanting to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And just taking enough so I wasn't getting sick and wasn't going into full-blown panic attacks. And so I finally flew to a place in Colorado, and it was a 30-day program. And once I landed there, all the work began.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
It- yeah.
And yeah, that's such a tough thing. That's something that, that I'm sure you've heard from other people. It's like the having to wait for a bed or having to get into treatment, and that can be a tough deal. And like I was talking about with the detox, like sometimes that's just, you don't want to use anymore, but man, to just prevent, anything worse happening, that's almost what you have to do, is just like some controlled, using or drinking, just to where you can get to the point of detoxing. So tell me a little bit about just some of the work that you were actually doing in treatment. Was this like a 12-step based treatment, or what was going on?
Yes, it was a 12-step based program. Um, and so we would go to meetings every day. I really got into a routine of meditation there, therapy, just a lot of learning for me,
Mm,
um,
mhm,
because I didn't know what was going on with me when I got there. I knew something was wrong. Something was obviously wrong. I didn't know what it was, and my idea of an alcoholic or an addict was alcoholic, brown paper bag, under a freeway. That's where you live. Um, and addict was, you know, living in a trap house and, you know, 100 pounds underweight, and you know what I mean.
mhm,
So
mhm.
I didn't have the knowledge um, of the disease. And there is where I started to gain some of that knowledge. I didn't even know when I first went there that I couldn't drink again.
Yeah,
you know they're
yeah,
like, yeah man, like you probably can't drink ever again if you want to have a good life.
yeah,
And I'm
yeah.
like, what?
Mhm.
So there was a lot of learning and growing up that happened. And when the 30 days was up, I was ready to go home.
Mm.
I thought I was good. And my parents came to a family week and they said, yeah, you're not coming home. You're going somewhere else for another 90 at least.
Okay. And so where do you end up going?
So I end up going to Newport Beach. um they gave me an option. I could go anywhere I wanted, and who wouldn't want to go continue sobriety near the ocean? You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Coming
sure.
from the
Yeah.
Midwest.
Yeah.
Um, so that's what I chose. And I went there for 90 days
Okay.
and I learned a lot
Mm.
there and did a lot of work on myself. Um,
And was this like a sober living situation kind of, or what, how would you
no, it was
describe this?
it was more inpatient.
Okay.
So
Okay.
everybody lived on grounds.
Mhm.
You could go to outside meetings.
Okay.
You could work your way up to being able to like ride a bike to meetings and stuff like that.
Got it.
So it wasn't 100% lockdown, but it
Right.
was still like, you know,
You're here.
75% lockdown.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got it. Got it. Okay. And so you start doing that, and it sounds like, you start, even though you're in treatment, you start having a little more freedom. And in those first few months, what would you say was the biggest thing that you were really struggling with in sobriety?
Self-identity.
Hmm.
Um, I didn't know who I was. I didn't know. I had lost my passions. I had lost my true self. Um, and I had to find that again.
Hmm.
And it's a tough spot to be. I think the majority of people get there once in their life. whether they're in alcoholic or not. It's just kind of a growing up phase. But that was probably the most difficult part. It was like, all right, now I got to find myself. Like, who is Tom? And I had to learn to love myself and kind of just go wherever, you know, wherever it took me.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's man, that's such a good answer. I would say that was the biggest thing that I struggled with for sure. I had no idea who I was. No one else around me knew who I was, and that can be a tough thing. I think a lot of people probably get lost in that. So now you leave there, or I guess you stay in California, right? Um, the book that you wrote with your mom again is titled Unraveled: A Mother and Son Story of Addiction and Redemption. Now, your mom was saying that you came to her with this idea, that this was something you were kind of, uh, you know, I don't want to say pushing her, but she kind of made it sound like you kept coming back to her with this idea. Where did that idea come from, and why did you want to do this?
Yeah, I think something had happened. Some movie or some publication came out.
Okay.
Um, and I don't know if it was, I think it's called A Beautiful Boy.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was it or not.
Okay.
It was, I think it was around that time, because I think that was like 3 years ago, or
Mm-hmm,
3.5
mm-hmm.
years ago, or 4 years ago, something like that.
And that's
Um,
Shia LaBeouf, right?
uh, is it? I don't know. I
Yeah,
haven't seen it.
I think that, yeah. So I think that's about his story, if I'm not mistaken. And
So yeah,
yeah.
so I just was like, we should just write a book.
Mm,
And about our story of addiction. I mean, it's a mother and a son. She got sober, I got sober, and um, maybe it could help some people.
mm-hmm,
I don't
mm-hmm.
know, because I was all gung ho about helping other people, because you get into such pain, and you just get so low and dark in this deal. I did, and I wouldn't wish that upon anyone. And so when I see people and they're talking in a certain way, and I know what they're going through, and I'm like, I hear you. Like, I've been there and it sucks, but here's what I did to get out of it. And,
Yeah.
here are some solutions that worked for me.
Mm, yeah.
So I was all about it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great idea. And yeah, no, I just looked it up. I was mistaken. I was thinking about a different movie there. But yeah, similar idea. So that kind of pushed you to do that. Um, that's pretty cool, man. Now, why did you guys decide to write it the way that you did? It's like your mom's perspective and then your perspective, and why did you guys decide to do that like that? I mean, I think it's a pretty cool idea, but why did you go that route?
I don't think there's any particular reason. I think when we met with a team, because we had a team help us through this whole process.
Okay.
Um, it just kind of ended up going that way,
Mm-hmm.
and um, it looked good, and it sounded really good, and
Mm-hmm.
so and it made sense, um, because I think it's easier for well, I think we both thought that it's easier for the reader to read, okay, here's Laura, okay, here's Tom,
Mm-hmm.
and this is their journey, chapter by chapter.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to have that format. I just thought it was a really great idea. In your mind, who is this book for? I mean, it's coming from two pretty different perspectives, right? Your mom and then yourself being the son. In your mind, who is this book made for?
I think it's made for um, anyone that is struggling with addiction or anything like that, hard times. I'm not going to go out and say that my story is so bad.
Mm,
It was bad for me. There are stories that there are a lot more loss and a lot more continuous pain
mm,
than what I went through. So I wouldn't say that like this is the book, um, for everyone, but I think that it could help families. So
yeah.
I think it's for, anyone between the ages of, 18 to 40, and up, parents too, parents
Yeah.
of addicts.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think you guys really nail a lot of different, different groups, or that this could really work and be helpful to a lot of different people. I'll just tell you, Tom, that one of the things that I think is, I'll just say, important about this book and about both of your stories, you and your mom, Laura, is that, yeah, I mean, we hear some crazy stories, right? Like, that are, and I'm the same way. Like, my low could have gotten so much lower. And we
Mhm.
hear that stuff a lot. And I think that what is important in this book, is that it shows that you really don't, and not to say that things didn't get bad for both of you, but that you don't have to lose everything. That it doesn't have to get to the point where, you're becoming the person that you were talking about. Like, you kind of think who an alcoholic is or who an addict is, where you are homeless. And I, because I've had people on the show with those stories, and we're, I'm not knocking those people at all. I'll say, but for the grace of God, like, man, that could have been me 100%.
Yeah.
But I think it is important for people to hear, like, hey, you really don't, it doesn't have to get to that point.
Right. And I think from what I've seen, a lot of the perception around, um, addiction is like people relate it to physical lows.
Hmm.
So it's like, okay, how bad did it get for you physically? Car
Right.
accidents, hospital visits, but it's not about that. It's about the emotional, spiritual, you know, bankruptcy, those lows.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
could live in a $10 million house, drive a Ferrari to work every day, and feel worse about yourself than somebody that lives in a 1 bedroom apartment that has 4 kids.
Yeah. Very true.
You know what I mean?
Very true.
So I think that changing the perception of it, um, i- from physical lows to emotional, spiritual, because that's what it's about right there.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Well said. Well said. And I would agree with that. One of the things that your mom, as we were chatting after the interview, she said, I really regret not expressing how proud I am of Tom, even though I expressed that in the book. She said, that was something that I really, didn't get to get across in the interview. So I said I'd be sure to, not that you don't know that already, but I'd be sure to throw that out there, which leads me into asking really what it's been like having a mom that's in recovery too. I mean, obviously that was instrumental in you getting sober to begin with. It sounds like that she did a great job of guiding you and maybe putting some other people that were in recovery in front of you to be helpful in all of these things. But what has that been like having someone so close to you that is in recovery?
Well, I think it's been a godsend. In the beginning, I didn't know what it was all about. I looked at it like we were just talking about. I looked at it like with the physical lows. So when she came out and said she was an alcoholic and got sober, I was like, what are you talking about?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Hmm.
and so I was just, I just didn't have the knowledge. I didn't know, and I don't know where I would be today, um, without her, um, taking those steps before me, because she had an awareness that, if you're not in a program, or you're not sober, you don't have. So, um, along the years, it's been very beneficial because we talk to each other on a regular basis, and we share our experiences together. We have a kind of a special, connection. Um, so it's been good, and I feel very, very, lucky and grateful, because not everybody gets to have that experience with
Hmm.
with an alcoholic parent.
Yeah. Yeah, very true. Very true. I do want to ask one of the questions that I asked your mom, just, in terms of writing this book. How do you think that your recovery has grown or changed due to actually just going through and writing this book with her?
Well, my recovery is always evolving and changing. Um, I think that writing this book together has, made me look back at my past, and really, um, have to dig deep and work on myself. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that came out in the book, and a lot of stuff that I would talk about, with her, that, there's still some work to be done. It
Mm-hmm.
never ends.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's been an amazing process, and, I continue to learn and grow. Um, so, I'm grateful for that.
Yeah. I'd like to hear a little bit more about what your recovery actually looks like today. I'm with you. I'd say my, recovery is always evolving, and it probably should be. So what does that actually look like today for you?
Well, I mean, today there's certain things that I do on a daily basis that, kind of keep me in the here and now, and keep me in the loop and connected with other, men that do the deal. Um, I have, an amazing girlfriend, and she gets this deal.
Hmm.
She
Hmm.
understands it, um, and she is very supportive, and that helps. Um, you know, it, I'm not saying that I would be in a different spot, um, without her. You know what I mean? I'd be
Sure.
completely fine, but it's nice to be able to have that. Um, and I try and stay connected and help people that are struggling with addiction, too. And it's hard right now.
Hmm.
Everything's shut down. I'm in California. Everything's shut down. There's no, um, get-togethers with other sober people right now. Everything's over the phone or computer, and so it's been difficult. So my program has changed, definitely, over the
Hmm.
past 9 months,
Yeah.
um, but it's still there, and it's just evolved into something different. You know.
Yeah. 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 I'm with you, man. And I think you know, that's the same for a lot of people right now. And I think it's, there's good and bad, like with everything. And I think, if anything, the thing that I've learned is that no matter what, I can still continue to stay connected and still attend, meetings, and still do all these things that for me, I know help me grow in my recovery as well. I do want to ask before we wrap up, Tom, if there's maybe one piece of advice that you'd like to share with the sober nation, whether it's for someone that's new to this deal, or someone that's been around a while and struggling, someone that's struggling with relapse.
Yeah, I would say, something that comes to mind is ask for help. I mean, it's simple as that. It's something that is extremely hard to do. It was for me, but I find that when I ask for help, I get help. And there are a lot of people that have been through the same experiences that I'm going through that can help me and kind of guide me, show me how they did it. So I would say, ask for help. And if you feel like you're at the lowest point of your life, it can get worse.
Yeah. Yeah, it sure can. There's always those yets, right? Hadn't happened yet.
Yep.
And yeah, so that's really great advice, Tom. And be sure to grab your copy of Unraveled at unraveledthebook.com. Thanks again for coming on the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Be sure to check out the show notes for all the info from today's episode. Sober Nation FM is brought to you by Sobriety Engine. Sobriety Engine is a free online community of men and women supporting each other in their recovery. Visit sobrietyengine.com to join today. This show is also brought to you by Recover Health. If you're ready to get fit and start living a healthier lifestyle while supporting your sobriety, you can learn more about having me as your own personal fitness and nutrition coach at rcvrhealth.com. And again, whether you're listening to the show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or watching on YouTube, please share this with your friends, follow, subscribe, and leave us a review. Nation, thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.